Oh, here I am. Yes. And you are back at the Black Horse, a lovely English pub on the edge of Lewes, on the eastern side. Very ancient, and you can tell it is an old-fashioned pub. Good food, but it doesn't pretend to be a restaurant. Still got some people who can always be seen at the bar. Terrific host in Declan. Good beer, well run, plenty of events. Now, a lot of people quite like the quiz, which takes place every second Sunday of the month. But that actually, this month in July, falls on one of the last days of the Euros. So the clash is one that no pub could afford to undertake. And so Deck isn't taking the chance either. I don't blame him. It's a good commercial. So it will be on the third Sunday in the month in July. But other than that, regularly throughout the year, there is a quiz on the second Sunday of every month, starting at 8 o'clock, £2 to enter, very good value for money. And right now, there is a special on with food. During the Euros, a meal deal. You can get a burger, chips, and a drink, all for £15, all in. Since I still think I can go in and get half a crown's worth of chips in a chippy, to me that seems very expensive. And then I talked to people and said, "Is that a good deal?" My God, they said, "That's a good deal." So a burger, a drink of your choice, wine, beer, soft drink, chips, all for £15. So there you go. You can get a deal while the Euros are on. I rather think there will be deals afterwards, but that's the deal for during the footy, and it seems to me to make sense, because when you're watching the footy, you don't really you want to be able to pick at some chips and a burger. You don't want the caviar version. It takes too much attention to eat. Right, in half an hour, we got Harry Atherton coming along, and Harry reports from Normandy. He's a very perceptive political analyst. And I'm sure that he will have a lot to say about the French elections and what's happened there, and what the ramifications may be. Now, you can get scare stories all over the place, and we sometimes are silly to report them, but according to the Times, some shopkeepers have boarded up their shops and have shut down for a little while on the basis that they think there may be violent protests in the streets at the result. If that's so, it is sad that any society can be terrorized by people who just don't like what's happening politically. I know what I would like to see in Westminster this time around. I mean, it's not there. I'm sure as hell not going to go and kick somebody's front door in or smash a shop's front window. Or, for that matter, purloin any goods while the shopkeeper isn't looking. It's not me. And I think it's not a lot of people. Not a lot of people in the UK still. However, there is some worry, not some worry, there's a lot of worry, and this government has to take account of it, at law and order on the streets. Despite identifying the problem, very little has been done to stem it in taking away knife capital of the world from London. Young people are still set upon. Knives are flashed. Stabbings take place. They take place, and we are told lessons are learned. We are plug this gap and plug that gap by the police, and another stabbing takes place. And yet, the funny thing is that the general reaction to the police in, I think it's, is it Greece, where this young boy has gone missing on an island, who have already decided to give up the search for him, much to the chagrin of the parents and some criticism elsewhere. It shows that there is a degree of confidence still that you can go to the local coppers and get some sort of assistance in this country. I don't know that that is good enough, but it is better than some of the police forces in other countries that we would consider to be civilized. And that is a worry. It's a worry that police forces across the world are not viewed with much confidence. And there is no reason for it except that we've gone through various phases with police forces of governance, of skills, of philosophies, even of politics. And that, like much of society, while jaw is preferable to war, also the buck stops here has got to be taken into account. And we should be hearing from politicians and from governments, but also from chief constables. The buck stops here. But it seems to be a sector that has gone to sleep. I'm in the media, but I was barely aware the election of our police commissioner was coming up, 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago? I was barely aware of the result with the return of the Conservative candidate, Conservative supported Katie Bourne. She's the police commissioner, damn it, for my area. I would have thought the first thing that a police commissioner does is to get to know all the viable media in the area to make sure that the message that the police want to pass on gets out. Okay, Mirador is quite tiny, and we're not necessarily focused locally, but we've never heard a squeak from them. On 2 occasions, we've invited the police commissioner to events that we've held, rather nice events actually, events in the true style of this is important, so let's do the job properly. We held at the White Horse, not a pipsqueak. So the whole attitude towards policing, and crime needs to be changed. I don't have to tell you that we have barristers who are associated with Mirador, and some of their private concerns about the police and the courts are worrying. But is anybody asking them for their views? Not in any serious way. Not in any serious way at all. So when you say law and order has broken down, in several countries in the world, that would mean almost lawlessness. We're not suggesting lawlessness here. Although the knifing epidemic is worrying, we still don't have too much concern about walking in the streets. So if you could walk. But the system is fundamentally unsatisfactory. It does not do the job that it's intended to, and that needs looking at. I wish we had money to do a documentary on what the hell the police commissioner is supposed to be doing, and whether it's a system that is making things any better. I rather think the conclusion may well be, and perhaps this is why the authorities stay well away from media. This is why they stay away from media, because they don't want too close an examination. how the system is handling some of the concerns that the public have over policing and law and order. It's a question that we will put into the mix in our next season of programs. In many ways, we have hit our targets in media in as much as our objective was to rationalize what we were doing, what programs we had, what the standard of our presenters was, what knowledge they had, how good were they at communicating, how was our systems. And that's why in the time between Christmas, last Christmas, or let's say January the 1st, and now, as we come to the end of the first half of this year, we've had a number of technical cock-ups as we struggle to find the proper way to bring you programs in a cost-effective manner, but in a way that remains with a high degree of professional approach. But we think that we have now got that, and it's time for us to blossom with a few more imaginative programs. Exactly what we've been calling for from politicians and local government. A bit more pizzazz, a bit more variety, perhaps a little bit more limit on talking heads and introducing more moving pictures. These are the things that we're looking at. And it may be that in doing that, we're able to say, gosh, yes, what we'll do is we will do a documentary on the police commissioner. What is the office all about? We would have to, as journalists, have to take a studied decision as to whether to do it with the cooperation of the commissioner or not. And if you get it with the cooperation, it's quite often a raft of conditions tied to it. If you do it without the cooperation of the commissioner as an independent, then you will get all sorts of people saying all sorts of things and making sure of the accuracy and the truth of any allegations is substantially correct. And that's not always the easiest thing to do. It can be very time consuming. My comments about where we are at Mirador and what we want to do and where we hope we're going are really tied to looking at things such as the police commissioner, because we have a local police commissioner. We have a Sussex police commissioner. The NHS, for instance, for us to undertake any sort of investigative journalism would be more difficult because it's national. And though we have a national presence, we don't have a national reporting force. So once again, confirming the veracity of information can be very time-consuming and very costly. There are lots and lots of things. And people say, why don't you ask that? Why don't you do a program on? The answer is we'd love to. But we like everything else. We are tied as far as finances are concerned, human resources are concerned, equipment is concerned, to what we do best, which is within our resources at the moment, within our skill, within our technical capacity. So to expand what we do, we need to expand some of the parallel things that you don't see, but which nonetheless are important to the function. Of a television operation. Anyway, it just one or two little things out of the paper. Of course, Saved by the Bell, and if you are football oriented at all, you will have been on the edge of your seat last night. The standard of football may not be quite as great as we expected, or it has been displayed in some other of the international matches that are taking place. But by God, the drama was enormous. Substitutions in the 90th minute. Some sort of enthusiasm from the English side in the 92nd minute. A score in the 94th minute. And against, supposedly, a team of minnows who played some very, very good football. And didn't have to be ashamed of their performance. Will they or won't they? And there's large chunks of, it doesn't look as if they're going to, with the pundits saying, oh, there's going to be some analysis tomorrow. I mean, they'd already started to send off their copy to their newspapers, I'm sure. And looking at the Times today, which has got comprehensive coverage of the England-Slovak match, is a lot of it must have been put in place well beforehand. So everything that went on with the guessing game was, it doesn't look as if they're going to do this. Oh gosh, yeah, okay, let's do the critical pieces, which undoubtedly, to some extent, had to be withdrawn. Now, there are two schools of thought, of course. And in one school of thought, it's how you play the game as opposed to the result. In other words, if you win well, great. If you lose well, great. If you win badly, boo. If you lose badly, horrendous. Then there's the other that says you should be playing at top pitch all the time. And if you're not, there's something wrong. And let's analyze the whole thing. Depends which school of thought you're from as to whether last night's match fulfilled your expectations. I must say, waiting 94 minutes for something to happen was a long time. But nonetheless, it did, and it set the whole thing alight. And the front and back pages this morning. England live to fight again. Now, it has been said by some of the pundits, and it's quite right. Quite often, the top teams who are a favourite don't really do terribly well in tournaments, but they are good footballers. So they take time to settle into a tournament such as the Euros. But that didn't look as if it was happening with England. One pitiful performance was followed by another and another. And it looked as if it was going to be another. And indeed it was for a good part of the evening. But wham! As one commentator said, a moment of magic. And everything was turned on its head. So certainly it was thrills and excitement. And last night, because the election is. Oh yes, let me. In 20 minutes or so. Less than that. We'll have Harry Atherton on board, who can give us a much closer view of the French election than we can give from here. But I think that the description of our media as being is the far right of Marine Le Pen's party is way off base. Harry seems to think, living there and casting a very close eye on French governance, that she has brought her party back into, yes, right, but right in an acceptable way. And that we should continue through words to pin far right on what is likely now to be the new government of France is dishonest and alarmist. So I wish that editors would start to look more carefully and hive back to the great days of Fleet Street, when words were like nuggets of gold and to be treated as carefully as that commodity. Our media is not distinguishing itself in the main. There are some exceptions, of course, but generally speaking, no. And that needs to be addressed, along with some of the other things, as I just waxed lyrical about the police. The police, the NHS, the water companies, general state of the economy. We are not in a golden era. And it would appear our footballers have picked up on that and decided not to be in a golden era themselves, even though there's some very fine individual footballers and those that for their clubs turn in first-class performances. What I feel like saying, I'm just saying, but I'm rather more than just saying, is these are things which need to be looked at closely, and which our local MP, from whichever party, whichever persuasion, whichever person, should take a very serious look at, and which we, as a peculiar hybrid type of television station, should be watching carefully on your behalf. Right, okay. I'm going to bow out now so I can get hold of Harry Atherton, and we will be back a little after 10 o'clock. Toodle pip.